Good morning and hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Ryan, and I am joined this morning by Daniela Cohen, my former career advisor. Good morning, Daniela.
Yes. Good morning, Brendan, and good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today.
Welcome to the inaugural Certified and Hungry podcast.
Woohoo!
The purpose of this podcast is really to share some insights about public accounting and interview some cool people who have done some cool things and know what they're talking about. So I chose Danielle as the first guest because we had a conversation recently about three important elements that contribute to someone thriving in a tax career. And there were really good points. So I thought this would be a great topic for us to just kind of crack open and, for you to share your thoughts. And so let's just dive right into it.
For sure. When Brendan approached me about this podcast idea, we were going back and forth. What do we talk about? Public accounting, tax sometimes has bad stigma to it, but that's not true. As we know, it's a very exciting career and you can for sure thrive at it. So the three things we kind of touched on, and the three things that over the past 8 years I've realized is if I focus on this, I'm going to have a good career. They take work, so it's not easy, but everything that's worth it takes some hard work. So those three things to me are your mindset, how do you show up to work every day, the relationships that you build, and your technical tax knowledge, of course, and expertise and industry expertise. So if you are able to work on those three buckets every day, you're going to thrive, at least in my opinion.
All right, so let's kind of dive into those a little bit. So the first one is mindset. Tell me, how do you show up to work every day? How do you want to show up to work every day? Maybe even in the virtual environment, what does that look like?
For sure. So, your mindset really sets the tone for your day. If you wake up and you're saying to yourself, I'm going to have a crappy day, I have so much work to do, it's not going to be a good day, you're not going to have a good day. You're setting yourself up for failure. So try and change that mindset as opposed to thinking, I have so much work to do, structure it and say, what can I get accomplished today that's going to make a difference? What am I doing today that's valuable or being impactful in someone else's life or in my life? How am I making a difference? Some people will think of making a difference, solving world hunger. No, it doesn't have to be so extreme. That's not what we're trying to achieve, but it can be small things. In our profession, we work, even in tax, we work with teams every day. You have someone who's preparing a tax return. You have someone who's doing research for you. My most fulfilling thing at work is seeing that I'm teaching someone something that can advance their career. So if we're working on a tax return and I'm able to explain to a staff person a technical concept and they understand it, I feel fulfilled. Even if it's small, it's something that I'm like, okay, great, I made a difference today. So I think these small wins and really viewing your work as impactful in as small or as big as you want to view it as impactful.
Interesting.
That is internally. Yeah. And internally, that's one realm. And then externally, we are client service providers. So our clients come to us to help them be more tax efficient. How can we help them grow their business? So we really are advisors to our clients, and we really do make a difference in their success in their career, not in their careers, but in their businesses. So, and you can start as early as your first year in public accounting. So really taking that in, and that all comes with the mindset. Like, how are you going to view what you're doing every day?
Yeah, that's super interesting. From my experience, that's the most fulfilling aspect of the job is getting those calls from clients, right? Where they're not calling you just to complete a tax return. They're calling you because they have complicated issues and they need, an experienced tax advisor to help them overcome those issues, right? It feels good. It feels good to, get one of those calls and, to be honest, 95% of the time or more, I don't know the answer, but we have the resources to find them the answer, right?
Right.
And that feels good once you accomplish that goal. Once you get them the answers they need and give them some clarity, at least give them some options, that's what feels good, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And it's not about knowing the answer instantly. That's not what I think we're meant to do or what is expected, especially now that the ever-changing tax landscape, it's very hard to keep on top of everything, but they trust us to find that right answer for them and put the time into getting them those responses. And to me, that's so valuable. They trust me as a person to get them the right answer.
Right.
So yeah,
Interesting.
for sure. Another thing I think that's so important, public accounting, there's so many realms. When I tell someone I'm a tax accountant, they're like, oh, you just review tax returns all day? I'm like, that's a very small portion of my job, but
common misconception.
Yes, exactly. And especially within our firm, there's so many opportunities to make a difference, and advancing our CDI efforts, CDI, cultural diversity inclusion. How can you make a difference in that? Community service projects. How can you give back to your community? So really immersing yourself into all of these different things, I think, is what makes my job fulfilling. And I think that's why my mindset is the way it is.
That's great advice. And I totally agree. Those are the things that, keep me excited about coming back to work, every morning and trying to do a good job. How do you keep that mindset in the virtual environment that, we find ourselves in currently? And, the future of business probably looks like a mix between a lot of remote work and in-person events. How do you keep that, that positive mindset?
Yeah, I've really had to do some self-reflecting and be vulnerable and reach out to people. If I'm struggling because I am feeling a little burnt out or overwhelmed, reaching out to my mentors, reaching out to my peers, to you, and being intentional with those, and they get you through it. And a lot of people are struggling with the same things as what we don't realize. So, I'll message you. I'm like, oh, I'm having a bad day today. And then I feel better about it. You just kind of have to vent. So leaning on your teams, we are all human and we all go through these emotions. I'm not happy all the time. I'm saying I have a good mindset, but it takes work. And you really have to be, you have to be intentional about it. And also practicing gratitude. What am I grateful for in my day to day? There's a lot of things to be grateful for, especially after going through this pandemic and realizing, we are lucky in a lot of ways. And sometimes the things we complain about, we probably shouldn't be complaining about.
Yeah, that's totally true. I think you touched on a good point there. That's a good segue into the next point, the next element, and that was reaching out to people. And the second element that you mentioned was relationships. So I wanted to maybe get your take on what are some of the most important relationships that you have in your career. What are the relationships that you value?
Yeah, of so many. Part of the success of this career is your relationship, your network, internal and external. Probably one of the most valuable relationships that I have now are my mentors. These people really push you to get to where you have to be. Everybody needs a mentor. You don't have all of the answers to everything, and neither do your mentors, but your mentors have so much more experience than you. They've probably gone through the issues that you're going through, and they can guide you in figuring out what's best. So I think having multiple mentors is important because, of course, we're all human beings and we're all different, and our goals are all different at the end of the day. So finding those right mentors is crucial. And I kind of wish I did that earlier on in my career. So my advice to everybody listening is do that as soon as possible. Work with different people, find the ones that you relate to, and just set up coffee meetings, virtual coffee meetings, set up a 20-minute check-in. It goes a long way. And when people do that with me, So now people reach out to me to be mentors, and it's just like comes full circle, and I like am so happy about it. So I think mentors is a huge thing, and I think you would agree with that for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think a key aspect of those comments is the S at the end of mentor, right? Having more than one.
Yeah.
And constantly as you're growing throughout your career, reaching out to other people that maybe don't work in the same group as you. Maybe they work in we work in the tax group. Maybe they're an audit partner. Maybe they work in a consulting group. Maybe they don't even work in public accounting. Maybe it's a family friend who, they're an entrepreneur, they own their own business. And there's a lot of things that they could teach you, right? And kind of get you outside of your comfort zone.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's what makes you grow, right? Those relationships can really, catapult your career into the direction that you want it. So totally agree with those points. A follow-up on that. So you have these mentors, or, you establish those relationships. What do you do to strengthen those relationships? How do you maintain, a strong relationship with your mentors? Because I'm sure many of them are very busy people. I'm sure you're a busy person. What do you do? What are some of your strategies?
Yeah, I think I've used the word intentional 5 times already, but it's so important. You really have to be intentional with these relationships. So as a mentee, you have to be putting the time into these relationships. It's not just the mentor, it's also me. So I'll set meetings at least quarterly, and I take notes on what we talked about. And then I really try and act on some of those action items. So the action items from your meeting with your mentor. If your mentor told you, for example, you should be attending more industry events, I'll intentionally do that and then be able to report back on what I learned. So it takes work. A mentor isn't going to solve all your problems. It's up to you, but you really have to listen and go through with that. So that, I think, is what has made my relationship successful. And I kind of challenge my mentees with the same thing. If we're going to be meeting and if you want me to be a mentor, I'm happy to do that. But this is valuable information that needs to be acted on.
Yeah, totally agree. That initiative is huge, right? It's something
Right.
that you've got to make time for, right? You've got to put time in your calendar, or in your planner, and take that initiative and act on it. Good advice.
I still remember you saying when one of our team meetings, time is a finite resource, and it's so true.
True.
And time management is something that through that pandemic, I think I've become better at structuring my days, because we can kind of get lost, and you wake up, you roll out of bed, you get to your desk. Blocking off time in my schedule, and again, being intentional with what I'm going to do with those 2 hours, 3 hours. Doesn't always work, as we know, because our phones are ringing, we get emails, fire drills, but really just setting that every day, getting in that habit, and you can get so much more accomplished. Jeff Bezos has the same amount of hours in his day that we do. So,
That's true. I don't know if he sleeps, but
yeah.
well, that's great advice. So I guess we can probably go into our third element here, of technical expertise. And we work in a very complex world of tax code and court cases, and Congress is rewriting the laws every so often. How important is technical expertise to thriving in a tax career?
Yeah, to me, it's the bedrock of our career. You can't be a tax professional without having that tax technical expertise. However, that's always changing, and it's always something that as tax accountants, we have to work on every single day, no matter if you've been in this career for a year or 40, especially because, like you said, I think they're rewriting the rules every hour. So to keep up, it takes work. And I think with the two, if you take your relationships and you take your mindset and you put that to advance your technical expertise, you really go further. we set up these weekly hedge fund manager meetings where we all get together and talk technical expertise. Without those relationships and without those trusts, our peers, wouldn't want to meet every week and bounce ideas off of each other. So I think it's so important, like these three things kind of work together. And if you're struggling, I don't know how to keep up. What sources should I go to? There's so much information today, not just tax, but industry, financial services, hundreds of emails. So like, how do you sift through that? I've had to ask people, what works best for you? Just really exposing yourself to everything and then finding what works best. But you have to kind of lean on those relationships to know, because I don't have all the answers and I still don't know everything, but just working on that every single day. And with the blocking off time, and again, the word intentional, I will block off time at least twice a week to, if I have to read a regulation, if I have to read something, it's kind of like my undisturbed, do not bother me at work time, 30 minutes, an hour, just to focus on reading it, because it is hard. The tax code is not an easy read. It's not something you can kind of do on the beach. So you do have to put that time and the work into it.
Interesting. Yeah, you touched on something there that sort of goes beyond just tax technical expertise. It's also industry expertise, right?
Yeah.
So not only do you have to sort of understand what you're doing from a tax perspective, but you have to understand how your clients operate, right? How does their business work? What's the common lingo in their business, right? So we work in the hedge fund space, the private equity space. What is incentive? What is carry? What are all these interesting terms that are unique to the industry that otherwise someone may not you may not learn in college. If I had to ask you, so let's pretend that I'm maybe a undergraduate student and I want to do what you do. I want to go into investment fund tax, and eventually one day I want to be a manager. What's some advice that you would give to me to help me start building my technical expertise?
Yeah, my number one advice would be to that first year, or even before you start, just be a sponge. And I don't want to say yes to everything, but try not to say no because you're scared, or don't say no because you feel like you don't know it and it's going to be too much. Just put yourself in these situations where you're forced to learn. Because when you're feeling challenged and stressed, it's because you're learning something and you're investing in yourself, right? So it might be very challenging at the time, but down the road, you're like, that was worth it. So make these relationships early on. The people that have been working in industry will really be your best resources. So reaching out on LinkedIn to different CPAs, accountants, I think relying on these people and kind of helping them, they'll guide you to where you need to be. Because as an undergrad, I had no idea what I was doing, and tax specifically, there's so many different realms. You can't just tell someone, go read the tax code. Like that's not going to be helpful.
Yeah. Fun fact, we actually both started as auditors.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
People said we were too nice to be tax accountants. Like, so mean.
Yeah. That's great advice.
And I think also learning how to do tax research. If you learn how to do that, you can kind of play around with it. It can be very overwhelming if you're not specialized in an industry, but just there's so many free tools available nowadays, which is amazing. Take advantage of those resources. Use your professors, really lean on them and ask them, what can I do to improve? Putting in that extra, 5 hours a week can make such a huge difference in the long run in your career.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Those are all excellent points. And one aspect also that you touched on was leveraging other people that you're in class with too, right? So sort of planting those seeds for the future, because you don't know where your classmates are going to be working in 5, 10, 15 years. So get to know them, right? Join maybe a club on campus, and kind of leverage those relationships and find someone to get interested in industry, in a particular industry together with, whether it's, healthcare or investment funds, whatever it may be. Get someone else to go learn about it with you. Subscribe to the Wall Street Journal and start reading articles, on a daily basis.
Exactly.
Anything you can do to get ahead, I think is probably pretty important.
Yeah, and in this day and age of podcasts, there's so many free podcasts available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts that help with industry, with tax, with relationships, with mindset. Literally all of these things that I've learned through different podcasts I listen to and through the resources we have at work, which are incredible at RSM. But all these podcasts, anyone can sign up for them. There's Bloomberg Tax. There's a million. How to Be Awesome at Your Job is one that I love. Highly recommend. And audiobooks. I think we were both listening to Grit.
Yes.
By Angela Duckworth. So all of these resources that really are at your fingertips if you try and look for them.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. All right. Well, any other closing comments for listeners?
At any career that you pick, you can really make a difference. It's all up to you and your mindset and how you approach your day to day. You could go in thinking negatively, or you can go in thinking positively, and always be vulnerable. I think nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect, but really try and self-assess yourself every year. Do gut checks, what I call them. Like, what can I improve on, and how can I be better? And everyone can make a difference.
If you're lucky enough, you'll have a mentor like Daniela. So everyone's that lucky, but I lucked out in my early career. So thanks so much, Daniela, for sharing your morning with us, and I will speak to you soon. All right.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. Bye. Everyone.